As the Word-Bearers Legion prosecuted the Great Crusade under the command of its Primarch Lorgar Aurelian, its character had been radically changed. The 17th Legion had once been a force of iconoclasts, who took savage joy in destroying the religions and superstitions that dominated human worlds during the Age of Strife. Now under Lorgar's leadership, they were a legion of fanatics who believed without question in the divinity of the God Emperor. On every world they came to, they converted the population to the same faith, even by force when necessary. They raised countless temples and cathedrals dedicated to the Master of Mankind. Millions who refused to accept their message were killed in violent purges. In time, news of these deliberate violations of the Imperial Truth reached the Emperor. Such actions represented a dire threat to the Emperor's plans for mankind, and could even empower chaos to move against him. The Emperor decided that his wayward son needed to face a harsh rebuke to set him back on the proper path. But he never imagined that this course would set in motion the very corruption he so feared. The Emperor knew that Lorgar and the Word-Bearers needed to be re-educated in the ideals and purpose of the Great Crusade. He would have to be stern with his gene-son and aggressive in confronting his misguided zealotry. There was little choice, for the 17th Legion's actions had already resulted in the deaths of millions of innocent Imperial citizens. Even worse, Lorgar was unleashing many of the same abuses that had characterized the Age of Strife. The Word-Bearers were not spreading reason and creating a society dedicated to the pursuit of truth. They were shackling mankind once more in the chains of superstition and fanaticism. This path was creating societies ripe for exploitation by chaos, putting at risk all that the Emperor had built. Lorgar and the Word-Bearers had to be stopped before they did any more damage to his plans. The Emperor decided that his best course of action was to give Lorgar an example from among his brothers of the proper way to execute the ideals of the Great Crusade. To this end, the Emperor called upon Roboute Guilliman, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, the 13th Legion of Space Marines. Just as Lorgar had immediately recognized the Emperor as his father and sworn fealty at their first meeting, so had Roboute Guilliman. Unlike so many of his brothers raised in more barbaric cultures, Guilliman was defined by his pursuit of logic and reason. Even before meeting the Emperor, he had correctly determined that he had been deliberately created to help raise mankind out of the barbarism of old night. Guilliman's course had not been set by dreams, visions, or prophecy, but by the needs he had seen around him on his homeworld of Macragge. When the Emperor had first come to that planet, he had discovered a prosperous and productive society. Its culture was already characterized by the respect for reason, order, and individual merit he wanted the Great Crusade to spread across the galaxy. The Ultramarines Primarch possessed a powerful, analytical intelligence. His talent for statecraft and organization was matched only by that of the Emperor himself. More than any other Primarch, Guilliman embodied what the Emperor wanted the Great Crusade to achieve. The Emperor hoped his example would be enough to end Lorgar's need for slavish devotion. To make his point even more strongly, the Emperor ordered Lorgar and the Word-Bearers to assemble with him and the Ultramarines on Khur, a world they had brought into the Imperium. Khur's capital was Monarchia, a settlement that the Word-Bearers nicknamed the Perfect City. This was because no place in the galaxy was more awash in temples and public works proclaiming the divinity of the Emperor. And in no other city did the people sing the praises of the God Emperor so fervently. To Lorgar's shock, the Emperor ordered the city evacuated and then commanded the Ultramarines to raze it to the ground. Monarchia's temples and cathedrals were quickly reduced to dust. Its people stood on its outskirts, weeping in the ashes of their perfect city. Then the Emperor turned to face Lorgar, who stood among the warriors of his favored, serrated son Chapter. The Emperor used his immense psychic might to force Lorgar and every Word-Bearer to kneel before him. He wanted to remind them of the oath of fealty that Lorgar had sworn when they first met. He rebuked Lorgar and his sons harshly. He told them that of all the Space Marine legions, only they had failed in their purpose. The Imperial Truth forbid the worship of false gods, and this very much included the Emperor himself. Lorgar's duty was to help lift mankind up by building a foundation of reason and logical understanding, not recreate a new tyranny of false belief. The Emperor pointed at Roboute Guilliman. The Ultramarines Primarch matched Lorgar's religious zeal in his dedication to the Emperor's ideals. But he acted in pursuit of those ideals, for his logic dictated that they offered the best and most compassionate way for mankind to emerge from the barbarism of old night. He did not force people to act according to the will of a false god, whose favor only he could determine. The Emperor wanted Lorgar to grasp the reality that it was the message that mattered, not the nature of the messenger. But the Emperor's rebuke proved incomprehensible to his faithful son. Reason was not enough, and could never be enough, to fill the hunger in his soul. Lorgar was desperate to become one with the divine, the true deity who governed the universe. For him, the messenger was all that mattered. Indeed, the messenger and the message were one. The shame of the Emperor's reprimand sank deep, as did the first stirrings of jealous hatred against Roboute Guilliman. In his agony, Lorgar went to his brother Primarch Magnus the Red, who had been a part of his visions as much as the Emperor. He asked for Magnus's aid in understanding their father's lesson. He wished to know the true nature of the universe and the Emperor's place within it. But Magnus, well aware of the dangers of explaining the complexities of the warp to an unprepared mind, refused to provide any answers. Lorgar returned to his flagship in orbit of Khur and retreated to his quarters to brood for an entire month, wearing only hair-shirt robes. He refused to speak to anyone save for his closest spiritual advisors, First Captain Khur Phaeron and his first chaplain Erebus. They advised their Primarch to go on a pilgrimage. The pilgrimage was a central belief of Colchis' old faith. It was a mythological journey, taken by a seeker of truth to a place where the gods and mortals could meet. Beliefs similar to those of the old faith were found across countless other human cultures across the galaxy. Lorgar thus believed that such a widespread and natural human instinct as faith in a higher power could not be false. He agreed to begin a pilgrimage and knew exactly where his 301st Expeditionary Fleet needed to go. He ordered the fleet to travel to the world of Cadia on the very edge of the Great Warp Rift that was the Eye of Terror. Lorgar told his advisors that he heard a voice in his mind calling out to him from there. When Lorgar and the word-bearers of the Legion's Serrated Sun chapter set foot on Cadia, they were met by one of its purple-eyed natives, a woman named Ingathel. She informed them in a matter-of-fact tone that she had been chosen by the gods of the Empyrean to guide Lorgar on his pilgrimage. Using a ritual involving 10 human sacrifices, she then ascended to demonhood, transforming herself into a worthy guide for Lorgar. Ingathel, now called the Ascended, revealed what she called the primordial truth to Lorgar. The Primarch learned that the Old Faith's Empyrean, its version of heaven, was actually the warp. It was there that all human desires and thoughts coalesced into pure energy, making it a place of infinite possibility and wonder. He was told of the 4 aspects of the primordial truth, who were in fact the 4 gods of chaos. Yet for Lorgar, each represented only one facet of the same divine force. He had found his one true god at last. He had found chaos. Ingathel warned Lorgar that the Emperor had long known of the existence of the Chaos Gods. He was intentionally preventing humanity from learning of the primordial truth. The Emperor was the true enemy, the anathema, who sought to destroy chaos and the spiritual gifts it offered. But he was not the first to try and pervert his species' destiny in this way. Much the same had befallen the ancient Eldari. Ingathel took the Serrated Sun chapter into the Eye of Terror to better illustrate what she called the true history of the Eldari. She showed the warriors of the Serrated Sun a vision of the death of the Eldari Empire firsthand. The demon explained that at the moment of their ascension to a new state of existence, the fickle aliens had rejected the primordial truth. Having given birth to a new god of pleasure, they felt no joy, only fear and revulsion. They rejected their new god, and their civilization had been destroyed as a result. In the course of their journey, many members of the chapter were possessed by demons. Frightened at first, these word-bearers came to welcome the change. They saw themselves as living examples of what humanity could become in union with chaos. The Ascended next took Lorgar alone on his own tour of the Immaterium. On their journey, she showed him the ruined worlds of the lost Eldari Empire with their billions of dead. She warned Lorgar that if humanity also rejected the primordial truth, in time it would suffer the same fate. To this end, she granted Lorgar a dark vision of humanity 10,000 years in the future, a grim era of suffering and constant war. This was a glimpse of the path she claimed the Emperor was leading mankind down. The sheer horror of it convinced the Primarch that humanity's future survival and enlightenment could only be guaranteed through service to chaos. His choice to serve chaos made, Ingethel took Lorgar deeper into the Eye of Terror. There, in the place where reality and dreams were one, the Dark Gods tested him repeatedly to see if he was worthy to be their chosen instrument in the material realm. He slew a dying avatar of the Eldari war god Cain on one of their lost empire's crone worlds. Next, he proved his martial prowess to the skeptical blood god Khur by defeating his most potent greater demon, Angrath the Unbound, in single combat. After such a victory, there was no further doubt that Lorgar Aurelian was worthy to serve the Chaos Gods as their mortal champion. It was then that Lorgar met the gods' final emissary, a two-headed, vulture-like greater demon of Tzeentch named Kairos Fateweaver. Kairos was the greatest diviner of the future in the Immaterium, though it was his curse that one of his heads always told the truth and the other a lie. He explained that Lorgar now had a choice to make. He could wipe away the shame he had felt at the destruction of the perfect city by killing Roboute Guilliman in the future, but to do so would forever doom humanity's chance to ascend to a new spiritual plane by uniting with chaos. Or he could forsake personal satisfaction and let Guilliman live, though he would have to suffer forever with the bitterness and jealousy he now felt. Kairos made clear just how important this choice was when he revealed that just this once, both of his heads had spoken the truth. To better inform this future decision, Lorgar demanded that Ingethel show him what would happen if chaos failed to overthrow his father's Imperium. That unknown vision changed the Primarch of the Word-Bearers forever, and the choice proved an easy one to make. The Lorgar who emerged from the Eye of Terror to rendezvous with his legion in orbit of Cadia was not the same man who had entered the Warp Rift. The doubt and indecision had been swept away. His father, the Emperor, had been right. He was not a god worthy of his son's worship. His Imperial Truth was a deliberate lie, a fabrication intended to hide from mankind a universe shaped by divinity. But Lorgar had seen behind the curtain. He knew the real truth. For the sake of humanity, to guarantee its ascension to a higher plane of existence, mankind had to be united with chaos. Though there were 4 chaos gods, Lorgar knew that he had been right all along. They were but facets of a singular divine will, a force of chaos undivided, that he would serve with all his heart. He was not their dupe, nor some weak-willed plaything like a possessed psyker who had been claimed by a demon. He chose chaos out of his own free will, for he had seen the future of humanity if left in the hands of the Imperium. Lorgar loved his species just as much as the Emperor. His idealistic nature could not bear to see that horror come to pass. To prevent it, he would now bend every particle of his being to serve the divine will of chaos. No matter the cost, Lorgar would see humanity ascend to become one with the primordial truth. And he was not alone. His foster father Phaeron, his first chaplain Erebus, and his demon-possessed warriors of the Serrated Sun chapter all knew the truth as well as he. They would stand with him, turn their backs on the Emperor's lies, and embrace chaos. They would aid him in converting the rest of the 17th Legion to the service of the great powers. And they would help him find a way to turn his brother Primarchs to the same cause. For the gods of chaos were patient, and for now, so was he.